Hey guys, welcome back for another video. So week 8 for the college football season is in the book. We're now moving on to our week 9 games, but we have our AP poll that just came out for week 9 of the 2024 college football season, and that's what we're going to be reacting to. We are going to completely break down the poll, go through all the slots from 1 to 25, see if every team fell where we think they should have or if they're too high, too low. Just a complete reaction to our week 9 top 25 AP poll. We have about 2 more weeks, and that's when the college football poll should then start coming out. But we've had a lot of movement because there were some upsets here. There were some good wins. There were some teams that got thrown out of the top 25. There's some new teams in the top 25. But let's go ahead and react. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments about this video or any other games, drop it below and I will respond. Every week we go over every single college football game. We also do the same thing for every NFL game as well. Break down the money lines, the spreads, and the over-unders. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed. If you're a football fan, if you're a sports fan, make sure you subscribe to the channel. But let's go ahead and get started running through the poll. So our new number 1 team, the 7-0 undefeated Oregon Ducks. I'm pretty sure they said is the first time Oregon has been number 1 since they went to the national championship back in was that 2014? So props to them. They are back at number 1. They beat the crap out of Purdue Friday night. They beat them 35-0. They received 59 first place votes. They had 59 out of 61 first place votes. Props to them. I said last week Oregon should have been the number 1 team in last week's poll. They had the best win up to that point of the season. That was number 2 versus number 3. They beat the Buckeyes. They should have been 1. They were actually the only team in the top 25 at that time with 2 top 15 wins. They had beaten the Buckeyes and they had beaten Boise State. But they do deserve to be number 1. But as you've seen, there's a pretty common thing going on right now. You only hold on to that number 1 spot for about 2 to 3 weeks, and then there's a new team. So it's basically a revolving door so far this season. That's just the way the 2024 college football season is obviously going to be. A lot of teams are pretty level right now due to the NIL. They've made up a lot of the spots that they were actually lacking in. Coming in at number 2, 6-1 Georgia Bulldogs. Moving up 3 spots, they beat Texas Longhorns 30-15. They are the only other team to get first place votes. They received 2 first place votes. I don't have an issue with them being number 2. Do I think they're the number 2 team? There's really no dominant team at all this season. Everyone thought that it was Texas. Texas hadn't really played anyone. Michigan continues to lose. They're not out of the top 25. I did say they would lose this week. That was Texas's only top 25 win so far this season. Georgia technically has 2 top 10 wins right now. They've beaten Texas and they beat Clemson in week 1. So they deserve to be number 2. No issue with that, but they've also had some sloppy games. The Bama game, Kentucky, sloppy performances. The Mississippi State game was a sloppy performance, but they've been winning games. They have that 1 loss, but that's fine. Like I said, teams are very even this season due to the NIL. So you're going to have a lot of teams going 11-1, 10-2. We can't necessarily hold that on them. And still, the Bama loss wasn't a bad loss because it was still a ranked team. It's not like the Notre Dame loss. Coming in at number 3, we have Penn State 6-0. They were sitting idle. They received 0 first place votes. Penn State 6-0. I don't have an issue with them being 3, but they're not the number 3 team. They haven't beaten anybody this season. Yeah, they beat USC at USC. That was the worst performance it could have possibly looked. They have a top 10 defense. They played awful that game. Drew Aller had the worst game of his career in that game. They won it. He threw as many picks in that game as his entire college football career. The guy's been in college 3 to 4 seasons. Not a good game at all. USC was by far not even close to anywhere being near a top team in the nation, and they were getting torched once they actually faced a decent team. So I'm fine putting them at 3, but I think a lot of these top 10 teams would beat Penn State. That has to be in your mind right now. They're 3 because they keep winning, but don't forget we got the Buckeyes coming up soon, so that should solve that problem. Coming in at 4, they were also sitting idle on the bye. 5-1 Ohio State Buckeyes. I would put them over Penn State. Sorry. I would put them over Penn State even with that loss, because if you asked anyone right now, would they beat Penn State on a neutral field? I'm pretty sure everyone, Penn State fans even, would say yes. So they should be in front of them. Their only loss is to number 1 Oregon, and it was extremely close. And they're going to rematch anyways. But as of right now, it's perfectly fine putting them at 4 because everything's going to work itself out because these teams are going to play one another during the regular season. So it doesn't really matter. But looking at this, the Big Ten right now is 3 of the top 4 spots. Coming in at number 5, the Texas Longhorns, 6-1. They fell 4 spots. They lost to Georgia 32-15. That was just an awful game. There's no way to put it. It got so bad. Sark benched Quinn Ewers, put in Manning, benched Manning, put Quinn Ewers back in. I hate the quarterback carousal thing because once you remove your starter, a guy who's been your starter for 3 seasons, it's in his head now, and you can't go back. They went back. They can chalk it up to whatever they want. It's not a big issue because Quinn Ewers is a veteran. He did come back in, score then some points, but just not a good look because to me that shows a little bit of instability and indecision to where you're waffling at the quarterback. When you said pregame, under no circumstances would you ever waffle and bench Quinn Ewers. It was just a bad look, but it was just a bad game. That gets overlooked by the fact that Texas lost so badly. That's going to be the bigger story. No one is even going to be thinking about the quarterbacks getting swapped. But they have some things that they need to tighten on. Really, they haven't played anyone this season. The only team they played was Michigan at Michigan, and Michigan is awful this year. They're only averaging 19 to 20 points a game. I said they were going to lose to Illinois. That was a pick there. They lost. They lost bad. Not a good look. Sharon Moore, you need to find yourself a quarterback really fast. His seat is getting hot year 1 right now. But Texas, fine with them being 1 because they lost to a top 5 team. You can't drop them from 1 to 10. They can only really fall as far as the team that just beat them, technically. Coming in at 6, we have Miami, who did not move up or down. They're coming off of that win versus Louisville, 52-45. We had Miami winning it, so we weren't surprised there. But Miami has question marks. Obviously, not on offense. They have the number 1 offense in the nation right now. Cam Ward, to me, him and Genty are the Heisman frontrunners right now. Put whichever one you want at 1 or 2, but they are the most important people at their respective positions and on their respective teams. Without them, these teams are probably 2-5 right now. So Miami's secondary is awful. Guys have been wide open. I've been saying for weeks, guys are wide open every single game. As the competition continues to increase, that's going to continue to be exposed. Coming off the bye, the defense did not look any better at all from the Cal and from the Virginia Tech game. Guys were wide open. Secondary, corners, safeties, they can't tackle. They take bad angles. A lot to work on there. Thankfully, the schedule's going to get a little easier because now you actually have Florida State coming up. And that sounds crazy to say, but Florida State's what, 1-6? So the secondary is going to look at that game because Florida State can't score. So it just gives you a week to rest. Coming in at 7, Tennessee 6-1. They moved up 4 spots after beating Alabama in Tennessee. They won that one 24-17. Great win. Props to them. I said that was an upset pick. That game was going to be close. It just didn't feel right. Both teams' offenses have been completely stagnant. They're kind of both in the same situation right now. The only difference maker is Tennessee still plays defense. They play really good defense. They had a top 10 defense coming into this game. They were only giving up 10.1 points per game, top 10 in quarterback pressure, top 10 in sacks. Bama does not have a top 10 defense. They have a top 30 defense, which is the lowest. They have the worst defense statistically right now they've had since 2003. Let that sink in. That's a massive issue. Too much is on Jalen Milroe. They have no running game. That's a massive problem. Tennessee was able to exploit that, but they have a lot of question marks. That offense, they still now, this is 4 straight games, they haven't scored over 25 points. Every SEC game they've played in this season, they haven't scored more than 25 points. That's an alert. That should be going off. That's a red flag. They got to figure out something. Nico has to play better. He was overthrowing wide open. If they had better quarterback play this game, they win this one 40-17. Easily. So many wide open touchdowns. He was overthrowing them. He's a freshman. I mean, well, he's a sophomore. You don't want to put too much on him technically right now, but they need to get better play. He was lighting it up, but as the competition's gotten stiffer, he's gotten a little sloppy. So there's things to work on offense, but the defense can carry them for now till Josh Heupel gets the offense back clicking in. They're due for a massive performance soon. They're going to light it up one of these games. Coming in at 8, LSU 6-1. They didn't move up. They didn't move down. They beat Arkansas 34-10. Great win. They look good on both sides of the ball. Arkansas, I said their biggest thing, if you have turnovers, you're going to lose this game. They kept turning the ball over. Quarterback banged up. Nonetheless, solid performance. I would say Arkansas's best all-around performance because the offense was slinging it, but they got a great play out of their defense. Props to Break Baker for the game plan that they worked up. Everything is in front of LSU right now. This is a potential outlier to make the SEC championship. Their only loss was out of conference to USC. They have no SEC losses right now. They're sitting in a good spot. That's why I said whoever loses the Tennessee Bama game, you're out of the running for the SEC championship because that would have been both teams' second loss in conference. There's SEC teams that have no in conference losses. So, and there's only a couple games left. So you're all the way behind them now. Can still potentially make the playoffs, but teams like LSU are typically in the driver's seat to make a run towards that SEC championship and potentially get the bye week. Coming in at 9, Clemson 6-1. They moved up one spot. They beat Virginia 48-31. Good win. I've been saying Clemson has a top 10 defense. They have not statistically shown that this season. This is the third or fourth game they've given up over 30 points. Virginia's not a good team. I think they came into this game 4-2. This is Clemson's first win versus a team with a with more wins than losses. That might be surprising to some people to hear, but Tennessee hadn't beaten a team with a winning record at this point of the season. So Clemson, props to them. Dabo, Klubnik, Maffa, Williams, Riley. The team looks way better in year 2 under Riley. This is a good team. Them and Miami are the teams fighting right now for top spot in the ACC. Probably the two teams that are going to meet for the ACC championship. But I'm not going to be like some people and say Clemson's going to be beating Miami because Miami's defense is giving up too many points. Miami has the number 1 offense in the country, and Clemson's defense is not playing up to par. Call it what it is. They're giving up too many points. Miami would have given up 31 points to Virginia also. Clemson gave up 31 points. Got to get the defense right. I don't care that they're playing great first half, playing sloppy second half. You got to play better second half. One of these teams is going to be able to score multiple touchdowns in the fourth quarter like Miami. You can't be a first half defense. I want to see a complete defensive performance versus a team with a winning record. But still, top 10 caliber team, I would not want to play them right now. They're moving the ball on offense. Defense playing a little sloppy. Coming in at 10, Iowa State 7-0. They moved down one spot. They beat UCF 38-35. That was a sloppy game. I had Iowa State winning it, so everything went to plan. But Iowa State, who had a top 10 defense, they're only giving up 10 points a game. They gave up 35 points to UCF. UCF was due for a big performance. They've been playing sloppy for about 4 weeks now. Very talented team under Gus Malzahn. So they were going to play someone competitively. They chose to do it versus Iowa State. Iowa State took that game for granted, but I wouldn't penalize Iowa State for giving up 35, but not penalize Clemson for giving up 31. To me, that doesn't right. I would put Iowa State in front of Clemson right now. Clemson has no ranked wins anyways. So I'd put Iowa State in front of them. They come from a Power 4 conference. They are undefeated. They gave up 30-something points to a team that's on the caliber of Virginia, and Clemson gave up 31 points to them. So I would just swap those two. Coming in at 11, BYU 7-0. They moved up 2 spots. So this makes no sense. Iowa State, top 10 defense, playing great. Matt Campbell, discipline. They win their game 38-35. They get penalized because they give up 35. BYU, undefeated, same conference. They beat Oklahoma State, who's looking bad this season, 38-35. The same score. They moved them up 2 spots. Iowa State gets moved down for the exact same score. BYU gets moved up. Makes 0 sense. Should be Iowa State, then Clemson, then BYU. You have to be consistent here. Cannot play favorites. But anyways, it really doesn't matter. They're all going to end up playing one another. BYU is undefeated. Very close game versus Oklahoma State. I did have that on my upset alert list. But I said that BYU was going to pull it out by 1. They pulled it out by 3. Extremely close. A lot closer than everyone had. I thought that spread was way too much. BYU playing great. Their defense is playing great. Retzlaff playing great. They're a little banged up right now, but they have a top 20 defense. That's what's carrying through these games is they live on turnovers. You can't live on turnovers because every game here, you're not going to get them, but it's been working wonders for them so far this season. Props to this team. It's hard to play them in BYU as well. They keep winning. Coming in at 12, Notre Dame 6-1. They beat Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech was very banged up. A lot of their best players were not playing, but Notre Dame controlled it. I said, Riley Love, run the ball, keep the ball on the ground. They have a top 10 defense, a physical defense. They're going to get you the win. Just don't have turnovers. And Georgia Tech, good team. They're now, 5-3, winning record. But without their best players on the field, they never had a chance versus a healthy Notre Dame defense. Notre Dame has to win out from this point. You have that loss to NIU. That's an awful loss. You can't go 10-2. You have no conference championship to rely on. Every other team does. You have to run the table from here on out to have a shot to make the playoffs, and they continue to run the table. Props to them. Coming in at 13, Indiana moving up 3 spots. They beat Nebraska, who had a top 10 defense. They beat them 56-7. They moved them up 3 spots. Can we give Indiana some respect? They were saying they need to beat Nebraska to show us how good they are. They curb stomped Nebraska, and you move them up 3 spots. I'm sorry. They should be in front of Notre Dame. They are in a Power 4 conference. They're in the Big Ten, one of the most difficult top to bottom conferences. They should be, I'd put them in front of Notre Dame. I'd put them in front of BYU. I'd put them right behind Iowa State. I'd put them so I'd have Iowa State 9, then Clemson, then Indiana, then BYU, Notre Dame. Indiana shouldn't have, it's just disrespectful. I'm not saying they're a top 10 team, but they continue to win, and they curb stomped an elite Nebraska. Physical defense. So this is a Big Ten SEC defense here. They're physical. They're strong. They beat him as bad as they could have. Props to Cignetti and this team. They are banged up at the quarterback position with Rourke, but they continue to win, and they're winning in dominant fashion. They did what you asked of them, and you only rewarded them 3 spots. Come on. Coming in at 14, we have the Texas A&M Aggies, 6-1. They were on the bye, but they're coming off of that Mississippi State 34 to they beat Mississippi State 34-24. They gave up a lot of points. Mississippi State's offense has been clicking the last few weeks. They scored 31 on the Georgia Bulldogs previously. I don't know that I wouldn't have moved them down. Solid SEC win. This is still a team that's still trying to find their way on offense, but they run the ball extremely well. They're averaging 235 rushing yards per game, and they're playing elite defense, top 15 defense. So I don't have any issue with them kind of sitting stagnant. Coming in at 15, Alabama 5-2. They dropped 8 spots. We said Alabama's sloppy play is going to catch up with them. It caught up with them with Tennessee. Had they been playing a better quarterback, they would have given up 40 points. Alabama back. Even the Georgia win was sloppy. They were up 28-0, and they allowed Georgia to storm all the way back and take the lead. The defense is pathetic. You're seeing a bit of an attitude difference from the DeBoer team to the Saban team because DeBoer's guys are a little showboaty on the field. That's a drastic change from Saban to DeBoer. You need to get your team under control. Very talented team. ESPN has them as the number 1 overall roster. Yeah, you have Milroe. You have Miller, Williams. There's weapons there. You have defensive talent. You don't have a bad defense. You just don't have a good defense. You got to get the offense under control, develop a consistent running game, and shut someone down in the secondary. Control the line of scrimmage. The line of scrimmage, Alabama's not dominant on either side. Fine with them being 15 right now. They are the highest 2-loss team. They have another loss coming. It will happen. They're probably going to finish this season 9-3. Coming in at 16, we have Kansas State 6-1. They moved up 1 spot. They beat West Virginia 45-18. Dominant win there. They're going to have another rank win because at some point Colorado is going to find themselves in the top 25. You'll have to start showing Kansas State some respect. The only loss they have is to undefeated BYU. They lost that one. That's it. They're playing dominant football right now. Avery Johnson looked great. Defense played a lot better, and they have DJ Giddens, a top 5 running back in the nation. Coming in at 17, Boise State 5-1. They moved down 2 spots. They didn't play anyone. Why did they move down? 5-1. They're only lost to number 1 Oregon Ducks. They didn't even play. We penalize them just because a lot of people can't get it in their head that Boise State deserves to be ranked higher. I would not have, under any circumstances, moved Boise State down. Coming in at 18, Ole Miss. They didn't play anyone. They don't want to move them down because they're an SEC team, so they just left them there. They are 5-2. They still have a shot to make the playoffs. You're 5-2. You've lost 2 games. You need to rebound. You had the bye week. Concentrate. Continue to develop that defense. You have a top 15 defense right now. Jackson Arnold, we need better play out of him. We need the offense to score better situationally. They know how to score points overall, but when they need it, they're never driving down the field and putting points on the board. We need better play out of the offense in those important situations, but the talent's there. Parrish, Trey Harris, Jackson Dart, one of the better quarterback, running back, wide receiver combos. And you have Lane Kiffin there, one of the best offensive gurus. So if they're going to get things right, if you are an Ole Miss fan, everything is still in front of you this season. You can still go 10-2. 10-2 in the SEC is going to get you in the playoffs. Coming in at number 19, Pittsburgh, 6-0. They moved up one spot. They didn't play anyone. Holstein, this team is lighting it up on offense. They are giving up some points, but props to Pat Narduzzi. Change schemes, change systems. It's working wonders on the offensive side. Very talented team, undefeated in the ACC, a potential underdog to make a run at the SEC championship, and they play Clemson during the regular season. So a lot of things are going to get sorted out there. Coming in at 20, Illinois, 6-1, moved up 2 spots. They beat Michigan 21-7. Dominating game. I said they were going to win. Brett Bielema plays Michigan-style football. Hard-nosed, running, line of scrimmage, trench warfare football. They won it because they have a quarterback. Michigan does it. They continue to creep up in those rankings, and they give the Big Ten another highly ranked team that's going to pad the stats for the Ducks, for Ohio State, because it makes their conference look a lot better. And when they get to play them, that's going to continue to pad that stat and push them higher in the polls. Coming in at 21, Missouri, they moved them down 2 spots for some reason. 6-1, they beat Auburn 21-17. Don't forget, Cook was out for a lot of it, came back fourth quarter, led his team back. They have playmakers, Cook, Burden, Weiss, Noel. They have weapons there. They have a top 30 offense, a top 30 defense. Very balanced team, solid win versus Auburn. Auburn can't score to save their life, but they do have a top 20 defense. Coming in at 22, we have SMU, 6-1. They moved them down 1 spot. Why? Why do you move them down 1 spot? They beat Stanford 40-10. Peyton Stone, no longer starting quarterback since week 1. Jennings has worked wonders. He can throw it. He can run it. They have Brashard Smith, the transfer from Miami, run the ball, closing in on 700 yards. A very talented team. Rhett Lashley has this team rolling right now. They're averaging 42 points a game. They play solid defense. They're only giving up 20 points per game. Look out for them. Also, undefeated ACC play. They have an easy schedule this season. They could be an underdog for that ACC championship. Number 23, Army. They did not move them up or down. They beat East Carolina 45-28. You have to root for the service academies. They continue to play well, both undefeated. Props to Army. They run the triple option. They suck up clock. They're averaging in the 40s, and they're only giving up like 11 or 12 points per game. Great play out of them. Coming in at 24, Navy, 6-0, undefeated. They moved them up 1 spot. They beat Charlotte 51-17. Navy can run the triple option, but they're also throwing for 170 yards a game, a very multiple offense. They can throw it. They can run it. They play defense. Both teams continue to win. When Navy plays Army, that's going to be the best matchup we've had between those two teams in decades. They're probably both going to be top 25 teams then, possibly top 15 teams. Coming in at 25, Vanderbilt 5-2. I've been saying for 2 to 3 weeks, Vanderbilt should have been ranked. Give Vanderbilt some respect. They're coming off of a win versus Ball State 24-14. Diego Pavia playing great quarterback play. He's completely changed this team. The NIL has helped this team. I'm not saying they're going to be ranked to finish this season, but they deserve to be ranked for the last 2-3 years. It's just some people can't find it in their head to rank or move up some of these teams just because they don't like the brand. Get over it. They're winning. They're winning in the SEC. Put some respect on their name. If they get unranked, let them get unranked. Let them lose. A loss will find them, and that'll fix the situation. They continue to win right now. Reward them with a top 25 position. They finally did. Coming in next, just outside Washington State, great team. Mateer throwing it, running it. They don't play defense at all out there, but they are scoring 46 points a game, letting things up to the air and on the ground. Next, we have Syracuse. Syracuse is one of those outlier teams. Miami plays them later this season. Watch out for Syracuse. Kyle McCord and company, they're slinging it for $350 per game. And Miami has a really bad secondary. So that's going to be a fun one to watch. Then UNLV, Duke, great win versus Florida State. They're 6-1 with a top 20 defense. Watch out for them. Then you have the Gamecocks. We had the Gamecocks winning. They don't deserve to be ranked right now, but they play big games very closely. They know how to upset teams. So those are the teams that are just outside of our top 25. That's our AP Poll Week 9 Top 25 reaction. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments on these teams or anything else, drop it below and I will respond. Thank you.